Welcome everyone in to our live stream here at Moneyline MMA, where we're going to be bringing to you guys our winning picks and bets for UFC 292, headlined by Aljamain Sterling defending his belt against Sean O'Malley in the bantamweight division. This fight card coming to you guys on August 19th in Boston, Massachusetts at the TD Garden. Prelims starting at 5 p.m. Central Time, and as always, the main card 9 p.m. Central Time, with two belts being placed on the line. The first, as already discussed, the bantamweight, and also the women's strawweight belt between Weili Zhang and Amanda Lemos will be on the line here. But before we get too deep into the card coming up on this Saturday, let's briefly discuss last Saturday, in which Jose and I had a couple of disagreements. And in the end, one of the disagreements we had was the main event. And it looks like in a tough contested decision, Luque got the win. Looked like, I didn't get to watch all the fights. I was traveling in Wisconsin, so I'll let Jose provide some input if he has any. But it really, from the replays that I saw, it really looked like Luque was able to kind of counter the wrestling of RDA, and he got like 7 or 8 takedowns of his own, and didn't really have any submission chance, but just did a good job controlling the fight.
Yeah, you pretty much said it well right there, Nick. Going into it, just watching it unfold, yeah, I was pretty surprised. I was, I guess, not necessarily surprised, but just I was more surprised that Rafael dos Anjos not pulling through with his game plan. He did look more battered up, was bloody, and he kept pushing forward, but it just seemed like a lot what he was putting against Luque wasn't working, and ultimately Vicente Luque ended up getting the more takedowns in the fight and overall control, having more control time. And I was banking on, RDA. He looked sharp and crisp still at points, but it didn't look like he was powerful enough, and like what his punches were doing weren't doing enough compared to what Luque was doing. So I do think I underestimated Vicente Luque on this. So congrats to him too, and you as well. That was a good pick. RDA, I still think he has it, and there's certain guys he can beat. Vicente Luque, he's just one of those dudes, he's going back at it, he has beaten some big names too, and was it Bilal Muhammad? I'm pretty sure he knocked out. So that's pretty crazy. So seeing him, I think he's definitely gonna, I think this was a good rebound fight for him to start climbing back up the ranks within the welterweight division. So that being said, yeah, this was a good call on your end, my man.
Yeah. I mean, it's just RDA. Yeah, he looked good still. There's honestly, RDA does not have a whole lot to be like disappointed about other than not getting the win. I think Luque just also showed, I don't blame people for having questions, because even he said after the fight, like, it's a miracle I'm able to continue doing this considering his brain bleed stuff going on. So yeah, it was one of those things. That's why I couldn't quite get him up to my 5-weight pick. But still, glad to see he got the win. And speaking of my 5-weight pick, Khalil Roundtree absolutely decimating Chris Dakaus. You love to see it. Both of our 5-weights. I mean, we couldn't have predicted that any better. First round KO. Love to see that. Cub Swanson, he admits that he thought he was losing the fight and gets the decision win. What are your thoughts?
That really threw me off. I thought we had that pick secured down. And
Right?
after seeing that, I'm like, oh, like I love Swanson, but I'm like, he did not win this one. And then when to see them call him as the winner, not only by split, it wasn't even split decision, it was unanimous decision, which really just threw me off. I'm like, what fight did I watch then? And then him going on the record saying that he didn't think he felt that he won that fight, and I'm pretty sure he's probably going to change his mind later, because I feel like most of the time when fighters say that, they eventually just step back and just say like the opposite. So
Yeah.
but I think at the moment, I think he felt it, and we all felt it, that he lost it. He lost, and he even looked like he was saying congratulations to the other side's coaches. So that being said, yeah, like, man, like, I thought Hakeem had it, but it is what it is.
It's an unfortunate one, man. It's one of those situations where you got to tell yourself that's why we don't let the judges let this play out. We got to finish it ourselves. And Cub's not an easy guy to put out, and Hakeem wasn't able to do it, and he let the judges decide, and the judges decided against him. If he would have won that fight, though, man, I would have had the beautiful streak of 3, 4, 5 hitting for me in terms of my weights. So he is the only one that came short. of my heavier weights. But going back down the line, it looks like AJ Dobson was able to get the decision win against Stefan and Chuck Wee. So that was a loss just for me. I don't believe you had any dog in that race. You had Vienna beating Lucindo. Lucindo got the submission win. And then I had Pickett beating Fremd, which was incorrect, as Fremd was able to get the decision win against Pickett. So, and that was one in your favor. So we both won some and lost some, but overall, I'll take being above 500 in my picks. You know, that's the general goal, is sticking above 500 for sure. But yeah, that's enough, man, about last week. Let's start discussing about some new business. We've got a great card. Unfortunately, some cancellations. The Cody Garbrandt fight recently got canceled. He backed out. So currently, there's only 4 cards on the main event. 4 fights, excuse me, on the main event card. And we were debating before the show what fight we thought was going to be replaced for the opener of the main event. It'll likely be either Chris Weidman versus Brad Tavares, because that's the current prelim headliner. And we were also discussing the possibilities that it's Gerald Meerschaert versus Andre Petroski, 2 very heavy jiu-jitsu and wrestling kind of guys. So that could be a really kind of a dogfight as well that I don't think would be too bad to open the main card with. But either way, we're bringing you guys, that being said, 4 weights instead of the usual 5, but it's still the same system where our heaviest weight, the 4 weight, is our most confident pick, and the 1 weight is our least confident pick, to get an idea of how confident we are in each one of our picks. And as always, let's start UFC 292 picks tonight with our most confident picks. So tonight, my 4 weight is going to lie in the co-main event. We have Weili Zhang, a minus 330 favorite, at least as the books opened, against Amanda Lemos, a plus 250 dog on opening, which has now moved to Weili being a minus 350 favorite and Lemos being a plus 255 dog. More money's coming in on Weili, and I agree with that money. I'm putting her as my 4 weight. I think she is in the most dominant phase of her career. There's no size differential in this fight. I think Weili is just too well-rounded, man. She's got 11 KO wins and 8 submission wins on her record, including a submission via rear naked choke of Carla Esparza in her last fight. One of the ladies that's most well revered to being able to wrestle in the women's side of UFC. And Amanda Lemos is great. Don't get me wrong. Beating Michelle Waterson Gomez and then Marina Rodriguez is impressive, especially by knockout. But I just don't think it's going to be able to be enough against Weili Zhang, a situation where she's going to just be out grappling Amanda Lemos as she feels, as she's able. Excuse me. So Jose, before I go too long though, what do you have for this fight?
Yeah, so for this fight, I actually have Weili Zhang as my 4 weight as well, my most confident pick. And you said it best, like, she's the former champ, and she's just looked extremely dominant against everyone besides Rose Namajunas. Even that the one fight she actually went split decision with her. But that being said, she's just completely trampled anyone that comes her path. And I think Amanda Lemos is no different. Amanda Lemos, she's only coming off a 2-fight winning streak, and she got submitted by Jessica Andrade. And Jessica Andrade, even though she's riding a 3-fight losing streak right now, she is a pretty well-versed fighter overall. She's got a good amount of KOs and also submissions. So, but I always thought Jessica Andrade was just being more of a crazy knockout artist. But seeing that Jessica Andrade was able to submit Amanda Lemos in the first round does kind of give me some concern that maybe Weili Zhang may do something similar. She does have herself 8 submissions on her record as well. So I do think, and she is just coming off a rear naked choke in the second round against Carla Esparza. So I think, Amanda Lemos could fall victim to another submission loss, or Weili Zhang. I could see Weili Zhang also potentially TKOing her. She's just so well-rounded. She's like, besides Rose Namajunas and Valentina Shevchenko right now, she's probably one of the most dominant female fighters in the UFC. So, and so that being said, yeah, like it's just hard not to go with Weili Zhang on this one. Amanda Lemos, I don't think she's really proven, I guess, her worth in the UFC compared to Weili Zhang. Just the level of competition, like you said, just doesn't compare. So for this one, that's why Weili Zhang is my most confident pick, and I agree with you as a 4 weight.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, this is going to be exactly how it was last week with both of our 5 weights getting a smack Nice, easy win. It wasn't even a question. This isn't as much against Amanda Lemos, but you make a great point. It sounds bold to say that Weili Zhang might be the best women's fighter right now overall, or even or close to it. Maybe not the best, but she's getting at this point. Who else? I mean, look at her striking differential. She's landing 5.8 significant strikes per minute and only absorbing 4. Amanda Lemos is landing 4.5. She's landing more than one less per minute, and she's absorbing just about the same 3.97. I think that just goes to show, like you're saying, the well-rounded abilities of Weili to just she could knock out Amanda Lemos or she could choke her out. Because I'm noticing Lemos does have an 81% takedown defense. Weili's going to have to shoot a couple times. I'm not sure she gets her first takedown attempt. But in any case, if she gets Amanda Lemos down, I'm very excited if I have my money on Weili. So yeah, man, this seems just like an all avenues. Like, this to me is by far and away the most guaranteed pick on this card, and that says something. I usually don't have a whole lot of confidence on women's UFC picks.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think for this one, I'd be pretty surprised if Amanda Lemos makes it out to decision. I don't see this fight making it to the end of the 5 rounds.
Ooh, I like that prediction. Go ahead and mark it down. We're both taking Zhang, Weili, and Jose likes to add in the under, or at least within the distance. Maybe not under on the rounds, but within the distance. Love it.
Yes, sir.
So that being said, that's both of our 4 weights. So we'll let Jose continue then with his 3 weight of Saturday afternoon.
Okay, so for the 3rd weight, this is actually my 3rd weight. This is the main event. The bantamweight strap between Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. Right now, Sterling is the betting favorite at -290, while Sean O'Malley is the betting underdog at +215. For this one, man, in all honesty, I have Sterling. I mean, the thing is, he's proven who he is now, and I do think he's a dominant champion. His grappling is, I think, far superior than Sean O'Malley's. Sean O'Malley did show he can wrestle a bit against Peter Yan when he took him down quick, but he didn't hold him down. So if he even takes Sterling down, if he can, I think he's not going to be able to keep him down for long. And if anything, Sterling may be able to reverse it and take his back. Sterling, we just saw Sandhagen look great with his wrestling up in Nashville, and Sterling himself, he instantly just took Sandhagen down and put him where he wanted him and just submitted him in the back. So I think this could be something similar to that. I could possibly see I can see Sean O'Malley losing in a similar fashion to how Corey Sandhagen lost via rear naked choke, and probably early. I can see Sterling wanting to make a statement on Sean O'Malley and just trying to submit him as fast as he can. I think that may be something, but I will say that he is my 3 weight for a reason, because Sugar Sean does have phenomenal striking and he does have some power. I do think Sterling probably was going to be the stronger fighter in this matchup, and he may carry a little more power behind his punches. But I mean, Sean O'Malley, 11 out of his 16 wins come via KO. So yeah, like, who knows? Maybe he may rock and stun Sterling a bit. But that being said, for this one, I feel extremely confident going with the current champ, Sterling. So for this one, what weight do you have this fight at, Nick?
I got this one. So I got Sterling, I agree with you, as my 2 weight. So just a notch less confident than you are. If you would have asked me like 3 weeks ago, or even when the fight was announced, I would have been like, oh, I'm putting my house on Aljamain Sterling. And clearly I'm not like taking a U-turn on that, because I'm still picking Sterling to win, but I'm far from as confident as I was then. I guess just mainly because I'm thinking that Sean O'Malley has an insane striking differential. I think this isn't a situation where we were just talking about Weili having an advantage, and potential at least advantage, in both the striking and the grappling departments against Lemos. And I cannot admit that that's the case with Sterling and O'Malley. It's going to be very clear that O'Malley is the bigger, taller man, and this is a 30-foot ring since it's a pay-per-view event. I think he has a clear striking advantage. I think he has the opportunity to incorporate kicking and potentially some knees if Sterling is going to go for takedowns. Now, Of course, Sterling, if he gets on O'Malley's back, I'm not sure how long O'Malley's going to make it, which is why I still have Sterling to win this fight, because I think in 5 rounds especially, it's got to happen. There's no way that Sterling doesn't get Sean O'Malley down at some point. So my reservations with Sterling on O'Malley is that O'Malley gets a knockout pretty much, because I highly, highly doubt the fact that O'Malley wins by decision. Maybe I'm crazy, but I think if O'Malley wins, he needs to get a knee, he needs to get a punch, a kick, or something to really stun Aljamain and finish it off from there. His range is just next level. I'm not sure it's something Aljamain's ever seen, and yeah, it's really one of those things that I think we have to admit that Sean O'Malley is at least improving and every fight, and he's a young dude, he's 28, and if that's considered, I have to give him the respect to know that, I mean, Aljamain has done so well, but if I want to be pessimistic, his only super good win is submitting Corey Sandhagen. Peter Yan was good and all, but it was split decision in DQ. TJ Dillashaw didn't have a shoulder, and Henry Cejudo, I mean, it was also split. So I mean, I'm just saying that I have a little bit, like, I'm not as all in on Sterling as I was. I still think he wins the fight. I still think he puts it together. I'm also worried too. He's already talking about how this is his last fight in the weight class. He wants to move up, blah, blah, blah. I want to see what he looks like on the scale. I'm not putting a dime down, not a single cent, until Friday when they weigh in. I want to see what he looks like. I think he's dreading the cut. I think his mental is not good around that weight cut, and I want to see him do it and look good, and then I'll be confident to put some money down. Those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So, yeah, I mean, him moving up too. I mean, I would like to see him and Volk. That'd be a pretty cool matchup. I think Volk definitely has him any day. I think Sean O'Malley too versus Corey Sandhagen would have been a better fight to really prove whether Sean O'Malley deserved the title shot. Because, like, I could see the UFC just kind of pushing him forward too, which is why I'm not as confident. But he has looked a little bit bulkier too. So that being said, I like yourself. I would have had Sterling too as my 5-weight, but Sean O'Malley, he can finish people. He hasn't really knocked out big names as of yet, really. He did go split decision with Peter Yan. So that being said, like, I want to see him. I think he's legit once he puts out like someone like Sterling, like actually can knock out cold one of these top 5 guys. So that being said, I do think Sterling's gonna somehow take a victory on this, either submission or decision victory. So yeah, I got Sterling.
Yeah,
my 3-weight.
Dude, I mean, we've seen bigger upsets this year. I'm just saying. So I don't know. That's those are my reservations, and I don't know if we discussed that Sterling's minus 290 favorite. He's currently the third biggest favorite on the card, which is kind of crazy. There's a lot of heavy favorites on this card, and I just have a feeling that at least one of these heavy favorites is going down, and I'm very confident it's not going to be Weili. But speaking of that, we're gonna have to go over. So that was my 2-weight. Your 3. We need to go over to my 3-weight, and we're gonna discuss what's currently. I'm not sure. It's not going to be likely. I don't know how they're gonna end up shaking it up because they haven't announced it yet as we're streaming this Monday night. But it's currently listed as the opener of the main card. It might just be the second fight of the main card when it gets all ironed out, though. I'm talking about the bantamweight bout between Marlon Vera and Pedro Munoz. For my 3-weight, I'm taking Marlon Vera. He is listed as the lowest favorite on the main card right now at minus 196 to Pedro Munoz plus 152. And this is a spot clearly because I would have put Marlon Vera if I was at my 4-weight, if I was absolutely sold. I think Marlon Vera has his discrepancies, right? And Pedro Munoz is a guy that's widely been, in my opinion, underappreciated or at least undervalued. He definitely has gotten screwed over a fair amount of times in the UFC. I thought he was looking pretty good against Sean O'Malley when that fight had to be stopped. So I don't know, man. Pedro Munoz has widely been underrated, if you ask me. And Marlon Vera, he sometimes tends to lack what's the word? Like, he's in the 3rd round, he's losing, and he doesn't even look like he's trying to get a knockout or whatever. He just doesn't have like the He doesn't change up his game plan accordingly, right? He just does what he wants to do, and it sometimes works. A lot of times it does work because he's 20-8, but he doesn't have like against Corey Sandhagen. He just gets out wrestled and outstruck. I don't even how there that should have been like a unanimous decision, like one of the most unanimous decisions that the UFC's seen this year. I don't know how the fuck that was a split decision. That's crazy. So that's kind of what concerns me about Vera. That's why he's not my four weight. I think he's still better than Pedro Munoz. He's got size on Pedro Munoz, and I think he's going to use his kicking up front. I would like to see a Michael Chandler style on Tony Ferguson. You know what I'm saying? I think he's going to use his front kicks, and I think he's going to be able to knock out, at least knock down Pedro Munoz and maybe get a TKO kind of thing. But I don't know. That's what I'm predicting for this. I think Marlon Vera is going to consistently like get his wins, but also lose against the top end of this division and kind of just become a gatekeeper. But in that sense, I think so is also kind of Pedro Munoz in that gatekeeper sense, and I think Marlon Vera is a little better. So what do you think, Jose?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think I'd say like yeah, Pedro Munoz does kind of I get like kind of like some gatekeeper vibes from him. Just like giving off who he beats and who he loses to. And Marlon Vera, yeah, he is definitely better than being just a gatekeeper. So I am siding with you on Marlon Vera. He is my two weight, and he would be higher, but again, the other guys, that Sterling and Wei Lee, they just take the spot above him. But that being said, with him, I like him. Him and Pedro Munoz actually, their records are almost pretty identical. They're pretty similar to each other, 20-7 and 20-8. Both have a similar amount of wins via KO, exact identical submission wins, and also they can pull off decision wins as well. And like you said, this could go any other way. So I am happy that's at my two weight as well. The one thing I do see with Marlon Vera is I do think a little more power behind his hits overall, his kicks and his strikes, and his 6 inch reach advantage. Pedro Munoz, he has dealt with taller people before, like Deshaun O'Malley, but it didn't go his way, obviously. And as long as he doesn't get like poked in the eye or anything, he's gonna try to close the distance. But I think Marlon Vera, his striking is just too good. I think he's just going to keep the distance, and I think he's gonna be more victorious. Like when it comes to the punching exchanges, I think he's gonna land more on Pedro Munoz, given that his reach advantage, and both both throw a high significant amount of significant strikes per minute. Pedro Munoz lands 5.3 and Marlon Vera 4.09. So overall, I think this fight is definitely going to be a good striking match, and I think Marlon Vera is going to get again most of the hits at the end. So I think he's going to get this either by TKO or unanimous decision. If anything, Pedro Munoz, he can be tough to put out. He's gone to unanimous decision losses to Jose Aldo and Dominic Cruz, and even Frankie Edgar. He's gone to split unanimous to Aljamain Sterling. I think I think Marlon Vera is just probably gonna go unanimous decision. I'm leaning towards that a little more. I think I got Marlon Vera like yourself. He's my two weight, and I think he's just gonna put on a clinic on Pedro Munoz. So he's gonna I think win this victoriously. UD.
Yeah, for sure. I could totally see it, man. I think you're either going to be right about the decision, and the only thing that'll change it is a Marlon Vera KO. But I could totally see him getting a knockdown. Pedro Munoz doesn't necessarily get knocked out, and then continues. He gets the decision win, kind of thing. It's wild to see that both of these guys have negative striking differentials. It just goes to show that not only they're good strikers, right, but they're also facing some top end talent. Both of these dudes have seen the top ends of this division multiple times, so it'll be fun. This is a good clash of guys that like for each of them individually. I'd say it has really big personal implications. Like obviously, the winner of this isn't just going to go fight for the belt. I'm not saying that, but like for Pedro Munoz mindset and for Marlon Vera's mindset, taking a loss here is kind of rough. I think it would be like you're not going to be getting any belt runs anytime soon. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I don't think, especially Pedro Munoz. Yeah, I don't. Pedro Munoz is gonna probably need another 2 wins after Marlon Vera, to get a title shot. And Marlon Vera, I think he's just one more away. And you know what? Depending on how the Sugar Sean O'Malley fight goes and how this fight goes, maybe these guys will be matched up again for a rematch in the near future as well. So, Yeah, but for this one overall, yeah, I agree with you. I have Marlon Vera as my 3 weight, and yeah, you have him as your 3 weight. I have him as my 2 weight. I mean, he's your 3 weight.
Yep, sounds good. So in that case, then I'll let you take it away. We have the last fight of the main card, and by proxy, also both of our one weights.
Yes, so for my 1 weight fight, this is the welterweight bout between Neil Magny and Ian Gary. Neil Magny is a last minute step in for Jeff Neal, so this fight is luckily one of the fights that got saved for this pay per view. And right now, Ian Gary is a huge betting favorite. He is minus 440, while Neil Magny is a plus 310 underdog. I think not enough love is given to Neil Magny, probably just because how late he joined and just kind of how he's been looking on and off his UFC career. He's kind of a gatekeeper himself. He's always beating these up and coming guys or just stopping some dudes in their tracks. And but then when you put him up against the top guys like Gilbert Burns, Shavkat, he's not pulling through. But for this one, he can possibly pull it through. I think his vet experience could be and will be more than enough to beat Ian Gary. But that's why Ian Gary is my 1 weight. I am going with Ian Gary taking this win. He is undefeated, 12-0, and he's been getting ready for a while for a fight. He's been looking phenomenal against D-Rod, and D-Rod has a win over Sterling. So I think Magny has a win over D-Rod, and both guys have actually a win over D-Rod. So it's a good matchup. And yeah, I think Ian Gary's just going to continue doing his thing. I think he can get this be 13-0. And Neil Magny, I don't know. I think he again at the same time I do think he can almost unanimous decision win this over Ian Gary as well. Ian has obviously never been knocked out or submitted or anything. So if he's going to lose this, I think it's going to be via unanimous decision, and all it would be Neil Magny showing off his vet experience and how to pull off a win like that. So for this one, yeah, I have Ian Gary. Obviously, he's my least confident. He's my 1 weight. Who do you have for this for your 1 weight, Nick?
So this looks like this will be our first and only disagreement on the card. I did pick Neil Magny, Ian Gary's replacement fight, Neil Magny. I think part of my concern against, like my non-concern of him being a last-minute replacement is he's obviously in shape. He fought in June. It was just a couple of months ago, and it was a decision fight, but he only absorbed like some 34 strikes or something. It wasn't even that crazy. I think Neil Magny is by far and away the biggest step up in competition Aaron Gary has going to have seen in his career. I'm not saying D-Rod isn't good or anything, but I still think, as you said, both these guys have beaten D-Rod. Neil Magny choked him out. Ian Gary knocked him out. I mean, one or the other. Both finished him in the distance. And I think Ian Gary's going to find that Neil Magny is like, hey, this is like what the real boys are doing up here at the top end of the division. You're definitely not wrong about Magny being somewhat of a gatekeeper. But that's exactly what the gatekeeper's job is to do, is what you mentioned, and he's stopping people's runs, and he's showing the new kids who's real and who's not. Shavkat was able to beat him, and Shavkat has since shown how good he can be by standing and choking out Jeff Neal as well, the individual who had to drop out of this fight against Ian Gary. So yeah, that being said, I think I'm still, as 1 weight, I'm not as confident. I think there's a lot of value here. You mentioned the odds earlier, man. Neil Magny is getting like no respect. I mean, it'd be one thing if he hadn't fought all year and he was just coming in a week and a half late, but like this dude's fought twice in 2023. He fought 3 times in 2022. He's been active. I have no reason to think he's not going to be ready to go. And I think he's just, like you said, you predicted exactly like how I would expect the fight to win or be the outcome if Neil Magny won. It'd be a decision. It'd be Neil Magny showing Ian Gary like, this is what us vets do. This is how we win fights. We just dice it up. We don't have to do anything flashy. We just show that we're better for 15 minutes and we leave. So that's probably what would have to happen. Ian Gary would start to look for a KO towards the end of the 3rd round if he felt like he was not winning the fight. And maybe Neil Magny would catch him with something, but it's unlikely. So yeah, I would predict Neil Magny by decision if I had to say that. But overall, I think Neil Magny just has insane value. So he is my one weight.
Yeah, yeah, I totally get it. And yeah, now you say it like that too. That is very enticing. Yeah, so I definitely approve that bet too, just with Neil Magny as in general too, just because of given him being an underdog. And yeah, like he's got the reach advantage and that vet experience, and it's really either guy truly is beatable for each other. So that's why there are one weights though. So that being said, yeah, this is definitely one we'll both have to agree to disagree on, but obviously we kind of agree to some degree because they're both our one weight.
Yeah, and honestly, like it's not a bad thing to like it when it comes to making bets, at least specifically. Like we're making picks, but we're also chatting bets here, and you might agree that Ian Gary. You think he's going to win the fight with a little confidence, right, at your one weight. But you could also agree that it's a good bet to say Neil Magny by decision, and maybe not make any bets on Ian Gary, right? I think it's not smart to make conflicting bets unless you're hedging, of course, during the fights live. But that's a completely different story. When we're talking making bets ahead of the fights, you wanna you want to set yourself up for success. So betting Neil Magny, $5 say by to win by decision, you're going to get a whole lot of better odds doing that. So that's all I'm trying to say, is that even though you're picking Ian Gary to win the fight, you could agree that Neil Magny by decision for potentially plus 400 or 500 odds. Like, geez, you know.
Yeah, yeah, right on, Nick. That yeah, like yeah, this is definitely one. Yeah, I could as it gets closer. Yeah, I would definitely advise like keeping an eye on that. I wonder actually how much the money line because it's only Monday too, so I feel like it's probably gonna definitely close in as we get closer to fight day for
It's a
sure.
good point.
So this would be definitely one of those times to hop on that train if you're on Team Magni.
Yeah, I would say so. I think there can't be that many people putting, like, I get that Ian Gary's been dominant and stuff, but wow, just the fact that I mean, that's such a huge favorite. At least according to Tapology, he opened at minus 440, and I'm looking at FanDuel. He's minus 440 right now, the same exact, which goes to show that there are people betting on Neil Magny. There are enough people betting on Neil Magny to offset the Ian Gary bets. So I think you're right. I think towards Saturday, we're going to see that line close a little bit, and I think Neil Magny closes as a little bit less of an underdog, but still probably like plus 250 at least, which is crazy. That's crazy for an established UFC veteran like him. Nothing against Ian Gary, but before I declare him the future, I want to see it.
Yeah, yeah, and this is and even then, like if he does get through Neil Magny, there's still a lot of killers in front of Neil Magny that are just better than Neil Magny that Ian Gary's gonna have to
True.
walk through at some point. Then if he once he gets past Neil Magny, yo, and it's like I'm just looking at this too because like just looking at Neil Magny being like the underdog,
Yeah.
even the prelims, man. There's like Andrea Lee's a 2 plus 280 underdog. Gerald Meerschaert plus 210 underdog.
Crazy.
Um, man, there's some heavy favorites to Gregor Rodriguez minus 390 favorites. So I'm just looking at these cards. Brad Tavares minus 295 favorite. Chris Weidman plus 220 underdog. Just some of these odds definitely are crazy on this card up and down. And one of the other fights I want to talk about that I think is probably one of the ones that will probably move up to the main card on the pay per view if it's not the Gerald Meerschaert and Andre Petrosky fight. It would definitely be the Chris Weidman and Brad Tavares fight, which is currently the main event of the prelims. I know we talked earlier, and you don't have a weight on this one, Nick, but for me personally, thinking Chris Weidman, he's coming back from that leg injury similar to Anderson Silva's fight with that leg break against Uriah Hall, just crazy, crazy. And for this one, Chris Weidman, he is the plus 220 underdog and Brad Tavares minus 295 favorite. And this is probably one of the very few times Brad Tavares is going to be a favorite by this much as well. And I think it's just hard not to pass this one up. He lost to Dracus Duplessis, which now doesn't look bad at all, and Bruno Silva as well. And to be fair, a lot of the fighters he's lost to are just some up and coming guys. Robert Whitaker, Israel Adesanya, Edmund Shabazian when he was having his rise a couple years ago, and, and then he's racked up a couple wins. Not really the biggest names for sure, but I think this one will. If he's such a big favorite, and I think he should get this win over Chris Weidman. I think Chris Weidman now. I think he should have retired after that injury. A lot of fighters don't come back the same, so I'm very interested to see how he's going to come back, and if you know and be as dominant, because Chris Weidman himself, he just wasn't looking the best towards the right before that injury. He's lost three in a row, and then he won one against Kevin Gastelum, lost two in a row, won one against Omari, and then lost again to Rahal. He's only won two out of his last what is this? Only two out of his last 8 fights, which is kind of nuts. You know what I'm saying? And Brad Tavares, he at least has a couple more wins than that. Yeah, he's lost. He's 4 for 4, so both guys kind of aren't the best, But I think Brad Tavares should get this win. And it could be decision. I think it may just be a decision. I think it's just going to be one of those things where it's like, maybe Chris Weidman may have to hang it up. I don't see Chris Weidman making a title run anytime soon. Brad Tavares is definitely not making a title run anytime soon. So for this one, if it gets moved up to the main card, I would advise probably going for Brad Tavares. Yeah, it's just I like Chris Weidman. He's still my boy, but I don't see him taking this one.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, I don't really have any dog in this race, but everything you said is honestly worth enough for me to at least consider making a bet for sure. But yeah, these are two old American veterans that I'm appreciative that we get to see fight again, but I also hope that they can at least go out on their sword per se, so that we can see, maybe Chris Weidman wanted to at least have a respectful, not that, Uriah Hall didn't break his leg on purpose, but in his mind, he's like, I want to show that I'm like a dog once more before retiring, instead of just going back and leaving on that note. So I can respect it, but he's probably not going to be able to pull a win off. That at least would be a legendary, like one of a kind comeback that's never been seen before.
Yeah, I agree, and it's his skills just overall, like his power isn't is there as much as it used to be, and just a lot of the middleweights too are just, I feel like over time Chris Weidman has just not been looking as big compared to them. So, but yeah, again, that being said, for this one, I obviously don't have any weight on it, but it is one, like, it's a supplemental pick I have just on the side.
Cool. All right, well, that just about wraps it up for us here then at Moneyline MMA. Just a quick recap is that we both had Wei Lee as our top-rated 4-weight pick. Most confident that will be the Moneyline endorsed lock of the week. Wei Li Zhang to defend her belt against Amanda Lemos in the co-main event. Then after that, my 3-weight is Marlon Vera to beat Pedro Munoz. Jose's 3-weight is Aljamain Sterling to beat Sean O'Malley. And then we switch it around. My 2-weight, is Sterling, and Jose's 2-weight is Vera. So we agree on those fights with swapped weights. And then the only disagreement is our 1-weight, in which Jose took Ian Gary and I took Neil Magny. Definitely keep an eye out for us next week. We're always going to be available and live Monday before UFC events. We've been hot lately, always above 500. We're going to continue that here for you guys, UFC 292. Let us know in the comments down below who you agree on between Ian Machado Gary or Neil Magny. And otherwise, let us know what parlays you guys are putting together. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching.